just thought it was the worst call of the year. That's all.
We're not going to make promises, but I tell you this.
Yeah, I'm about to get wild. I know that. Let's get wild.
I don't answer anybody's question but yours. But you're an idiot. And really disloyal.
Remember, Syracuse fans, no matter how bad you thought this previous football season was, your football team didn't go an entire season without an interception. And my football team had 5 more games to try it in.
I didn't expect that to be where that went, and that was glorious.
Yeah, welcome to the Disloyal Idiots podcast here on the Fans First Sports Network. Christian Guzman, suffering Jets fan, joined by a very happy Bills fan, Steve Heller, and by suffering Steelers fan, Andy Pregler, who is sweating bullets right now as it is currently 8 o'clock on the Eastern Seaboard on Sunday, which means Sunday Night Football is 20 minutes away from kicking off, and Andy will be in a cold sweat for the better half of this the better part of the second half of this podcast.
Yeah, looking forward to yet again another Steelers-Ravens game that just had to add as many stakes as possible. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Let's talk about something that's way less stressful, way less confusing, the transfer portal.
Said no one ever.
Yeah, for those that are just tuning in with us for the first time this year, welcome to our show where we talk about Syracuse sports. For those that have been around here, you know that last week we did our trivia episode because we knew that today was going to begin a lot of chaos in college football. And for those that are unaware, the transfer portal is now finally open. It is now open for what I believe is, I'm not even 100% sure, but I know it is, I think, like 2 weeks. It's not a very long time. And this is the first year of the new window. So previously there used to be 2 windows, one in January, one at the end of spring practice. This year, the NCAA, in its eternal wisdom, decided that, nope, we're just going to do one window, even though the football season is still going on with a lot of teams that are losing players, gaining players, losing coaches, gaining coaches. The whole thing's a bit of a chaos mess. But for Syracuse, obviously not involved in the playoff, they are involved, however, in a lot of transferring. And so I think we should probably start there now that we have the full list of players who will most likely no longer be on the football team for next year. Thank you.
Very important note there, because with the small window, I guarantee we're going to see a number that went in and come back out.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think that's
all the way out.
Well, I think that's going to be like an interesting part of this. I guess in your opinions here, it's based off of the list of names that we have. There's a few names on here that I'm not surprised are entering the portal. There's a few that I am surprised are entering the portal. But holistically, I would not be shocked if 60% of these names were Fran and the coaching staff telling guys, look, you can stay here if you want, but you're not going to be a starter. You're not going to be getting serious minutes based off of what we've seen from this point. I'm curious if you guys kind of agree with that. And shout out to Kevin Wall over at Noon's Magician, who put together a list. We love a spreadsheet here, but put together a list. I'm going to show this up for those of you who are watching on YouTube. There's a list of, here, you can see it now. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. There is the list of everybody who is entered into the portal for Syracuse. We are currently looking at 29 different names across all different position groups. Guys, again, in my opinion, I don't expect very many of these players to come back, even if they can't find better pastures elsewhere, just because it's a lot of sophomores and juniors that I think if they didn't get a run in a 3-9 season, they're probably not going to get a run in a season that we're trying to do better than that.
Yeah, it's a combination. I mean, you've got a number of guys like, Ethan Stangel's a long snapper. Couple of walk-ons, guys that may or may not have had a pipeline to play or anything like that. And then you also have our entire wide receiver core.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Like literally, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the people that have been or that have and again, this list is people who have posted they are declaring, not people who are actually in the portal, because those can be two different things. As we all know, as EPL fans from transfer deadline day, paperwork can be a bitch.
But we're not sending transfer requests over fax machine.
There's Harry isn't going to be driving up somewhere doing an interview.
Yeah, no, we don't have
Right.
Fran hooking the arm outside the SUV on deadline day.
Fair enough. On the flip side, though, like I said, with wide receivers, we've got Nick Armentano, who's a walk-on, but then Jalen Hornsby, who was young-ish and curious if he was going to have any sort of impact, but young people that would have an impact, Emmanuel Ross, who we saw have some impact this year, as well as the old people that hadn't had an impact in the past with Umari Hatcher, and then Daryl Gill Jr., Jonte Cook. Who's Gabe Daniels?
Gabe Daniels got a bit of a run. As one of the true freshmen.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, at least 3 of our what had to have been considered our top receivers declaring. And the question would be, did we not match an offer they got, or what they were looking for, or why are they leaving?
Yeah, I think the wide receiver room is interesting. I just pulled up the Syracuse roster for this past season. Syracuse had 16 listed wide receivers on the roster. This is obviously a position group that was pretty loaded up, all things considered. And when you look at who is signed and is coming in this freshman class, obviously you've got Calvin Russell, but you also have Amari Go. You also have Darnell Stokes Jr. You also have BJ Garrett. You also have Zamadre Merriweather. There's also a lot of freshmen who are not in the transfer portal, like Julian McFadden, Terrell Wolfong, Nate Edwards, Jameer Thomas. Davian Kerr was obviously one that I'm glad did not end up entering the portal. And so I think that there's something telling to the quote that Fran Brown had at the very beginning of the offseason when asked about the transfer portal, which was his interpretation of the portal nowadays is that you're mostly swapping twos, and he's not as interested in using the portal for that purpose as somebody else might be. And what I think, again, actions and words are not always aligned, especially when we don't know all of the context here. I would guess that when looking at a wide receiver room, like, say, Umari Hatcher, like, say, Jalen Hornsby, those guys were probably going to be deeper on the depth chart this season with some of the higher upside younger guys that we had, and with some of the freshmen expected to take leaps between their freshman or redshirt freshman years and their sophomore years. The one that I think is the most interesting here, I'm sorry, as I realize I'm scrolling, I don't need to scroll on this, is Jonte Cook, who was the most recent addition to the portal here. The reason I say this is interesting is that he is obviously the most talented receiver that we had this season. Played in all 12 games, but dealt with a lot of nagging injuries. And also, we know there were off-the-field concerns with Jonte Cook, which is the whole reason that Syracuse was able to end up with him. There are multiple reports out there, some of which are rumors, none of which are backed by anybody on the Syracuse.com beat or any of the other beats that we trust in terms of reporting. It might have been a contractual issue. It might have been the coaching staff saying thanks, but no thanks. I think it's probably a little column A, a little column B here. But Cook was the one that was late to the game that I wasn't surprised. I'm more surprised about Gill and Emmanuel Ross hitting the portal rather than Cook or a lot of these other older receivers that we just haven't really seen any X factor or any consistency out of And some of that is just due to obviously the circumstances this year. But obviously, Steve, I think I would read this as the coaching staff saying, yes, the quarterback play was not good, but we didn't necessarily love what we saw out of some of the older receivers this year. And we are not necessarily willing to invest in you all in the way that we're willing to invest in the upside coming in.
Well, you also said the magic word in quarterback room, because all of them entered the portal too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now, I believe Steve Angeli is one of two on the roster still.
Probably. And then
Well,
as
I guess,
pulled,
Filardi and Rich Beelan at this point.
yeah. And then I'm trying to see if we didn't add a quarterback in this year's class.
We did.
we?
Zayed Lot, who
Yep.
the coaching staff do like.
Yeah, we probably need a few more.
To be fair, Christian, the coaching staff like Joe Filardi at quarterback, so I'm not trusting.
You make
their
great points here.
quarterback,
You make great points here.
Yeah. We had discussed through that for a while.
Yeah, before you go on a little bit on that, what we will say is Javon Evans from Syracuse.com did report that it was a contractual issue between Cook and Syracuse, which put him into the portal. So, like, that's at least a pretty good journalist backing one of the reasons why Cook is in the portal. But continue.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure that was, again, with all these things, it's tough. Like, I see a lot of this stuff on Instagram, like through the graphics that don't ever attribute anything. And so it's difficult to tell what is somebody taking something off of SyracuseFan.com versus what is somebody taking something off of an actual, report or posting from a recruiting reporter. But yeah, the quarterback room, I think that this is the other interesting thing here. Because again, Kevin, wonderful here, started putting together a list of visits. There's a couple quarterbacks coming in here.
Only a couple.
Yeah, only a couple. We've got Marcus Stokes from West Florida, Trey Hedden from Furman, Kristen Martin from Maryland, and Amari Odom from Kennesaw State. 4 different quarterbacks coming in. I would assume that there is a reason that those are the players that are being asked, that are coming on visits, because of the Steve Angeli of it all. I have wondered if either of you, have you seen the videos that Angeli and or others have been posting about him so far? No, he is throwing without a boot, and he is doing pocket drills, very limited mobility. I haven't seen him run. I haven't seen him do any kind of wind sprints or anything, but there have been multiple videos that I have seen on his Instagram and on other football players' Instagrams of Angeli throwing without a boot inside of the Syracuse facilities, which that, again, I have never popped my Achilles. We have an expert for that. But I don't know how quickly, I don't know whether we should be optimistic in this or if this is just kind of par for the course and it's really about the more intense physical activity.
So as a washed up old 34-year-old, when I did mine, I was back on it in 3 months post-op. Not like going crazy, but able to bear weight, and like it was like 3 months no weight bearing. So that he's up and doing stuff, we're 3 months after it happened.
Yeah, that's along the same timeline. Mm-hmm.
So, and I would assume a younger human being that's being handled by the best professional staffs you can come up with probably does it a little quicker than old man Haller here.
Yeah. So I think if I were a quarterback coming in, you're probably being told going to have to sit behind Angeli, at least for a year. Which again makes this list a little bit interesting here. I don't know if any of you have also, we can talk about other positions here. Obviously there's some wide receivers coming in. There's some tight ends, some defensive backs, which is a pretty big staple. There are, unsurprisingly, at least one. I would not surprised if there would be more offensive linemen from UCLA coming over as part of that coaching change. Yeah. But I just kind of curious getting you guys' thoughts on any of these visits that have been scheduled, and or any other thoughts on the list of guys that are now up on the screen again that are, transferring out of the program.
So here's what I will say. First of all, if you go back to the visits tab, there is already one commit for Syracuse. It's Michael Smith from South Carolina, the tight end. He has reportedly committed to Syracuse. I believe was injured last year and fell down the depth chart, so didn't get much playing time last year. But then had
So he actually opted out after his 4th week.
Okay.
And chose to sit to preserve the red shirt and enter the portal.
Okay, so but still also was had 10 catches, over 100 yards, and a touchdown or 2 in his freshman year in 2024. So could be in the mix for a starting tight end spot to replace Valari. The big thing here for me, that's the concern, is there's a lot of flashy positions that are being visited right now. That are coming in for visits. You see all the wide receivers, replacing the running backs, especially with Willis in the portal, with James in the portal as well, with Will Nixon's extra year up in the air. You also need a running back. So yes, the skill positions are definitely important to me, and I think a lot of Syracuse fans, at least based on the News Magician poll that we did this week. The biggest position of need is offensive line. And the fact that you only have one visit right now in this week is a little concerning because based on what I interpreted from Fran's comments in the last couple of weeks as we headed towards the transfer portal and press conferences, it sounded like offensive line would be a priority going into this season of transfer portalness. And to see only one offensive lineman scheduled for a visit right now, at least from what we've seen, is a little unfortunate because I think as it continues to be, and if you watched trivia last week as well, you could infer as well that healthy offensive line and quality offensive line usually means Syracuse success.
If you've listened to this podcast for more than an episode, I'm pretty sure you've heard that a couple of times.
I wonder who said that.
All of us. I've brainwashed all of you.
Brainwashed or wrong, or just learning how football works.
Por qué no los dos?
Por qué no los dos?
So,
hey, the sidetrack. It's distressing that more and more of the youth does not know por qué no los dos.
Fair enough.
This was an entire conversation at my New Year's party. We will have to
Great.
Multiple people did not know the El Paso taco girl, and one person thought that she was Chinese and not Mexican. It was a whole thing.
Oh no.
Now, yeah, and Old El Paso for me was that was Pace Picante, New York City ad back in the day. Oh, taco ads. How strange you are. Speaking of people that like tacos, on the offensive line, we don't have a whole hell of a lot, especially when Josh Miller, who was one of the only people left with snaps, just entered the portal too. So for the second time, for the record, he came from Georgia. Now he's taking off for wherever. I mean, does Petrie get his 17th year?
I don't think so. I don't think he's eligible for it.
I don't either. Beyond that, it's like Trevion Mack, Cam Pringle, Byron Washington, Joe Cruz.
I think Cruz is also done.
Cruz is a redshirt junior, so he's at least got a year.
Okay.
Yeah, beyond that, I mean, you've got Curtier Shepard from CNS. Jaden Mann, when he came in, was pretty highly touted. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting what the hell happens there. You got Nikhil Bertrand, who is also there. So that's 5 names that have some semblance of experience. Zach Rice from UNC last year. I don't know.
So you have like a couple people who could be your center in Cruz, who played it for the last game in an emergency situation, and Zach Rice. But we didn't see Rice a whole bunch, even though he was pretty, highly touted coming out of high school. didn't see much time at UNC and was a backup this year and really didn't see the field that much either. So, and it seems like this coach, at least last year's coaching staff, wanted to play him at guard instead of center, where he has played at center before.
And that's going to be the thing too, is with the new regime on the offensive line, we'll see who gets shuffled around again. Because different blocking styles need different size bodies and different ways people move in different spots. So I guess we'll see what the hell happens there as things unravel a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting what's going on here. Like if we don't see more visits for offensive line, I would have to hope that Castillo is just bringing a bunch of UCLA people, but it seems at this point everybody announces every sort of visit, so there's not too many raw commit. It's either like right off the bat, I entered the portal, I'm committing somewhere else, or let's go do the college visit tour again.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something to keep in mind with this that we've seen. Like I forget who it was, but last year Syracuse posted one of those like sponsored tops things where they had to, answer a bunch of questions while putting things that you could buy at Tops in a grocery bag. I don't fully know, but I think they had who was the Louisville offensive line transfer that we had?
Austin Collins.
Collins, thank you. Collins dropped in the middle of that, and Syracuse published on it because of course they did. That he had been on campus for 2 weeks, that he never visited. He never even stepped foot on campus, never did the visit, just immediately committed to Syracuse based off of NIL offers. So this is definitely, like, as we talk about visits, there's definitely opportunities that we will probably see more guys get put on Syracuse's radar strictly because of those coaching connections, whether it's with UCLA, whether it's with Toledo, whether it's with wherever Fran has kind of poached these guys from in his coaching staff from. That's also a likely thing here. The visits are only just like a little bit of us kind of piecing together things on a puzzle board where we don't actually know what the final picture looks like, which is also the same thing that's happening for the coaching staff too. So it's not as if everybody here is operating with an advantage or a disadvantage. One of the other areas that I wanted to talk about here on this list, when you look at the transfers out, again, I'm not surprised to see some of the linebackers transfer out based off of the recruiting classes and the depth of that position already. Not surprised to see some of the defensive backs transfer out just based off of how strongly Fran coaches and evaluates that position. What I am a little bit surprised of is the lack of defensive line transfer out. Obviously, some of them were just graduating situations, but also on the visit side, there's Dillian Fontes coming in from Maryland, Malachi Davis coming in from Toledo, and then Mike McAllister has Herb Gray from Tennessee making a visit with us as well.
No, Malachi Davis is no longer visiting. He's committed to Rutgers.
So there we go then. So yeah, that this actually leads into my thing pretty aggressively here. That to me was such an obvious weakness this past season. Obviously, the number of snaps that they were asked to being played it impacted things, but we were doing a 2-deep rotation, not because they were on the field so much, but because there wasn't really any differentiation between the starters and the backups in that group, and neither did a great job at either generating consistent pass rush or run stuffing in any way, shape, or form. And I really thought this would be an area that's more aggressively targeted by the coaching staff. Again, might see more in the coming weeks here, but I'm still not in love with anybody that we have on the roster on the defensive front. And I don't think that there's anybody coming in the recruiting class that's really going to make an immediate impact in the way that we have seen in the past. Like Delorier, the linebacker, he was being talked about pretty often as somebody to watch. There's no real defensive end or defensive tackle in this year's class that has that level of hype. Maybe they think Haskell can play right away. Maybe Jarius Rogers is another one that they think can play right away. But again, neither one screams oh yeah, these guys are ready to jump in and dominate on day one.
I would
Welcome to the
definitely
portal.
agree with that. Yeah, it's like the two big names that are coming back are Demetrius Samuels and Antoine Delorier, and those are your really, really big options. Maybe David Omobariola makes a Stephon Thompson light jump to, you know, become the edge rusher we thought he could potentially be, but other than that, like it's you've lost. Syracuse does have to do a lot right now, and it looks like at least right now they've decided that their focus is on the offensive skill positions. And so whether you want to argue is that the right decision or not is up for debate. Um, it just feels like right now what the resources that Syracuse has right now is that their focus is the offensive skill positions. When you see the amount of quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs that are visiting this week compared to the other positions of need for Syracuse.
So D-line confuses the holy hell out of me. Like how do we lose two of the only remaining defensive linemen, leaving us with effectively what? Isaiah Hastings is a senior, a bunch of freshmen, like boatload of freshmen, I guess incoming sophomores, and Richard Perry. And that's our D-line room.
Yeah.
This is when you're playing NCAA 26 and you hit whether it's Y or like pressing the R3 stick or whatever, and it pulls up your needs.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there and everything is red.
But remember,
like, oh, shit, I didn't think it was that thin.
Also remember when you would go into when we started NCAA 26 this year, and you got to your first transfer window and you saw every player leaving. You were like, this is not realistic.
Yeah. Now here we are.
Turns out it's quite realistic.
Yep.
That we shouldn't have lowered the sliders to what we thought would have been a realistic level, because the normal sliders were actually the realistic level, and we were all horrifically wrong.
Crazy. I mean, yeah. Delorier and James Hurd are kind of our linebackers now.
Isn't Hurd in the portal?
Oh, Hurd's in the portal. Is Moultrie Goddard hanging around?
Goddard is not. No, it's Caden Brown, Derek McDonald, Fatim Diggs, James Hurd all entered the portal.
And Jahad Lassane, who Steve said, I just learned that he was on the team this year.
I thought he transferred again.
I would assume
last year.
Dude, at this point, if we're in this position next year's trivia is going to be who he played for.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely I think, the guy that I would hope could do something would be Omopariola. Like I liked what I saw out of him, but I kind of view him as more of an edge than a linebacker. But again, see where things sit at the end of when the new roster comes out, which also, by the way, because Cuse.com is going to Cuse.com. If you look up Zamondre Merriweather, who is the other wide receiver commitment that we have, was at Boise State, was at Glendale Community College last year. If you Google him, the first result is his roster page on Cuse.com. So he already has
someone hit publish instead of holding it, basically.
Yep. And there's it has the headline 2026 signing day roster, but there is no landing page for 2026 signing day roster. So just Cuse.com and Cuse being Cuse, all the things, just letting it be out there. But it does look like Syracuse will have two players added in the portal so far. I think the last thing I just wanted to touch on with the portal, as I think one of the things that came up in our Slack conversations was kind of to that point that we were just talking about. It's a lot of names going into the portal, but this is not uncommon. The average, I forget who posted it in the chat, but somebody found a tweet that kind of did the math. It's basically every team is expected to lose about 25 players into the portal. Oh yeah, here we go. It's from Aiden Stepansky on Twitter. Sorry, that was a different post about it. But it's essentially 25 players enter the portal every year for every team. That's the average that you're kind of dealing with. I am kind of surprised that from a Syracuse perspective, we talked about the wide receivers. The one name we didn't mention is that Yassine Willis is entering the portal as well. But these are guys that played, but nobody that I was looking at as saying like, oh my gosh, crucial to the Orange 22-man depth, like, starting on either side of the ball, or at least guys that I would feel great about starting on either side of the ball.
Once you start adding things up, like every individual one may not shock you, but then you start looking at the cumulative effect of like we talked about, where the hell did the entire wide receiver room go?
Yeah, it's not so much the individual talent; it's more so the depth that Syracuse is missing right now. And honestly, we won't know how that's really affected until we really get to see it with our eyes in the spring roster breakdown with all the freshmen added, and obviously the portal additions that get added. That's when we'll really know like where everything stands and whatnot. But we've talked about depth a lot, and with Fran, it's kind of it's been a ho-hum subject, I would say, just because he's so new to the program. But one of the biggest issues that Syracuse had under Dino was depth because of injury issues.
Yeah.
And this year we saw that flare up. That, once injuries started to happen for Syracuse, it became tough for the young guys to really step up. And for a guy like Fran who wants to build the majority of the roster through the freshman class, it still remains to be seen if that's the right decision or not, especially in this day of age of college football.
I think my feelings on this have changed a little bit. I still feel fairly convinced that you cannot build an offensive line in the portal. I think that we're seeing with some of the bigger programs that got bounced early in the playoff, even like Alabama, Ohio State, they tried to really retool their line at a high level via the portal. And it's really hard to keep the depth guys in your program for a long period of time. But it is really important that I think the offensive line is viewed as a unit that maybe you can add one additional piece to, but you can't really build the whole thing while you're flying the plane.
See Indiana?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think Indiana is kind of the recipe for Syracuse and should be the recipe for everyone. Indiana is the best team in the country, but they are the best team in the country because they dominate the trenches, and they dominate the trenches not with, and Bud Elliott has kind of come a full circle on this, originally saying like, oh, they don't have enough blue chips to, compete or whatever. But when you start looking at draft boards, when you start looking at just talent and the PFF grades week in and week out, and you look at the actual evaluations, like Indiana wins because their best players are along their offensive line and their defensive line. And those are guys that have been in the program and developed aggressively while they've been at Indiana, or in the case of a few of them, at James Madison, and then traveled to Indiana all under the Cignetti staff. I think one of the things that Syracuse, and I'm hoping that based off of this window and based off of the way that Fran is kind of acting, there's that realization here that we can't buy a winning team. We have to develop a winning team from inside. And the good thing is that the recruiting is still strong. We're still having some of the best recruiting classes that we've ever had at Syracuse, but we're in that awkward phase now where we need to use the transfer portal more than we would like to in order to supplement the roster in the places where the development just isn't quite there yet, because we're still looking at redshirt freshmen or true freshmen, if you're not an absolute freak like Demetrius Samuels or Delorier.
It's tough because you want to build quickly. In pro sports, I think you're seeing it with most fans of bad teams. See this guy right here. You're okay with tanking and losing, and you're okay with losing because that's the best way to rebuild your team. If you do the portal correct, you can rebuild your team. And college football fans in general are way more concerned about the immediate success of the team and not the future success of the program, which is maybe not how most administrators and coaches want to look at it. But as we've quickly seen, especially with some of the coaching changes that was made this year, college football is all about what have you done for me lately. And so you have to be willing to do anything and make the big swings to get the right talent into the program. And so, yes, maybe for like an Ohio State, building through the portal on the offensive line is probably not the right decision. But for a team like Syracuse that just desperately needs talent, and like, yeah, that's probably the way you have to go. And you just gotta, coach it into them and do your best to get it into them, your philosophies and your standards. And we saw that in the spring transfer window last year when Syracuse you could feel there was a Syracuse panic when they signed 4 guys from the offensive line from that spring transfer window. Of course, you don't have that right now. And you've got to build this team just based on what we've seen. You've got to build this team a bit more aggressively through the portal. And right now, the coaches seem like the skill positions feel like that's the best way to do it right now for Syracuse. And that remains to be seen if that's the right decision or not. Again, I think we're pretty clear on what we think is the right decision, which is they should have gone for more offensive linemen, at least in this first initial wave of the transfer portal when you have the most talent available for you.
Yeah, I think what I'm interested to see is how some of these young offensive linemen do get developed under a new coach who has a history of developing the type of guys that Syracuse is going to get. I do think it's safe to say that a critique that we can give Fran is that he tried to bring Georgia to Syracuse, and Syracuse ain't Georgia. And it seems like there at least with the coaching changes that we've seen so far, and with the type of players that are being targeted in the portal, that philosophy is shifting a bit, and we're going after guys that did well at the lower levels and probably are worth the risk at an ACC school versus and going after big school guys that were highly recruited, highly regarded, highly talented, rather than just going off of a bunch of names from the big name schools that we could grab who might not have had that pedigree, but still got looked at by Georgia, Tennessee, etc. I think we still are a season away from really seeing this thing up and running the way that Fran and everybody wants it to go, because I do think that there's going to be a lot of learning that still needs to happen. But my concern is on the defensive side of the ball right now in the trenches, and there's still a lot of portal left. Still a lot of portal left in this, guys. Still a lot of portal left.
Well, and that's the thing is it's always they can go in this small window, but after they can sign after, correct? It's not like transfer deadline day where when this shuts, it shuts.
Yeah. So the big thing is, yes, they can go after, but Andy's brought it up. Like the ad drop deadline for Syracuse is, I believe, only like 3 or so days after the portal officially ends. And
so if they want,
Fran wants to get his roster, pretty much the majority of his roster done by that, so that his athletes can be enrolled in for spring classes, therefore making them eligible for spring practice.
Yeah, and I am not that Syracuse is going to change the way it does its academic calendar for football, but we have seen crazier things happen in the world.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Speaking of crazy things that happened, there was a basketball game that took place. And there is some other odds and ends on football news, but minor stuff on that side. With our last 20 minutes or so, I did want to at least mention the elephant in the room is that Syracuse is 0-1 in the ACC. They lose by, I believe, 4 points. No, they lost by 3 they essentially lost by 3 to Clemson because we bricked the 3 at the end of the game that would have tied things up. Guys, interested in any of your takes on this game? I did watch most of this one and have one very overwhelming thought, but I feel like it's probably going to be the same thought that you guys have.
So I caught fits and spurts and whatnot of the game. I was following it, but didn't have any firsthand outside of the last. I think I watched the last like 4 or 5 minutes straight up, but otherwise, all you, Christian.
If you're going to have a team that is reliant on team defense and a team that's going to be very stout defensively and not have much of a system offensively, you need more than one player to be a good ISO player in order for that offensive system to work. And Syracuse has players that can show bursts of that. Nate George and JJ Starling, to name a couple of examples. But boy, someone had to help Donnie in that second half.
Yeah. And the first half, where was Donnie? Like, I get this, and this is actually, I was talking to other people about this, why I was hoping he came back last game. Like, I was hoping they were able to get him back at least one game before ACC play. Didn't care if it was against a cupcake, didn't care if it was against a good team. Just one, get him one game before the games that quote unquote matter. To you have a lot of guys that want the ball in their hands, and you add another guy that needs the ball in his hands to do things, and the it's got to balance out somewhere.
Like what we've seen from this team is that most of games, what you're going to see from this team, it's a good defensive team. That's what we know from this team. We know it's going to be a good, stalwart defensive team. But offensively, even like no matter what opposing coaches say, I mean, Brad Burnell was basically like saying the Syracuse offense is more complex than you think. At the end of the day, it's not working. Like, I don't care how much more complex, like, it might seem to opposing coaches, how much more difficult it might seem to opposing coaches to stop, because we don't know the ins and outs of basketball enough to know about that. But it's not getting results no matter what. Like clearly it wasn't hard enough. It's not confusing enough for Clemson to be able to stop it the majority of the time. So you got to... offense at that point becomes dribble out and hopefully you can make an ISO move, which was Donnie in the second half. Yes, you can talk about the floor rust and the basketball rust that he had to shake off in the first half. That does go to Steve's point of maybe you should have played him a bit earlier just to shake off the rust.
Even 5 minutes, like give him some sort of run before diving into that.
Yeah, but we're here. And like, even if Donnie does perform better in the first half, who's saying that someone else is going to help him and support him in the same way? Like, Nate George had 10 points, but had a lot of brutal offensive stretches. I did the research for the ACC Network and ESPN crew of JJ making his first field goal versus missing his first field goal, and the numbers flipped. JJ made his first field goal and basically was ice cold for the rest of the game and was a non-factor offensively for pretty much the entire game. Like, something has to change offensively.
Yeah,
like like whether it's like the more complex plays that we're not seeing as basketball, as like not as deep basketball fans as some other people are, like no matter what, like we're seeing it with our eyes. It's not working. You're shooting 15%.
Pay no
Oh,
attention
yeah.
to the man behind the curtain, Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
if you,
yeah.
it's real rough out there. Like JJ Starling, 34 minutes, 4 points, 2 assists. Nate George, 31 minutes, 6 assists, 10 points. Nate Kang's 28 minutes, 5 points, 0 assists, 1 rebound. Like
Kings takes 3 shots.
there's just not enough. There's not enough action happening, and I'm not saying in like, oh, hey, like just like it's literally the stick meme of like do something. Like they're just not doing aggressive enough actions when they are the guys who are supposed to be dictating the action. And look, this team is clearly better with Donnie Freeman in there. 18 points, 9 rebounds. It's also the free throws. Like the most ironic thing about this game is that we finally got some free throw shooting, and it doesn't matter. 20 of 24 from the charity stripe for Syracuse. Clemson was only 6 of 12, and turns out that if they don't get to the free throw line, they're not scoring, which is a terrifying prospect for this Syracuse team right now. So if this team had shot free throws at the clip that they had been shooting all season, this game would have been significantly worse, and we would not have had the chance to win it on the last possession. So I'm glad Donnie's back. Like what Steve said, I wish that they would have played him at least one other game for 5 or 10 minutes because he clearly needed the warm-up time against somebody that wasn't the Syracuse practice environment.
What I will say is, like, you guys have spent a lot of time on that, and I mentioned it as well. I think that's the least of the worries here.
100%.
No, I mean, he's good. He's the best player that we have right now, just in general.
Yeah.
But like when you're looking at the Syracuse, like when you look at the box score, Syracuse only got 45 field goal attempts off. They made 18 of them. If you take out Donnie's 5 of 11, like that number is just terrible for a team of a bunch of stretch guards and point guards who are brought in to potentially, shoot the ball and create offense versus Clemson, who was 27 of 56 from the field, and only 4 of 16 from 3. Like, again, this was a game where we did not get Clemson's best effort, and we certainly did not bring our best effort, and the end result is a loss that feels super frustrating because we know it could have been a win, which would have gone a very long way into helping out what is looking like, as we've talked about a million times on the show, the next games these are the games that you have to win. And I don't feel super confident that they're going to be able to win all the games that they have to win. The next game for those, if you're listening to this beforehand, Syracuse's next game, they go down to Atlanta. They play at Georgia Tech on Tuesday, and they play at Pittsburgh on Saturday before we will record our next episode. Syracuse needs to win both of those games, and I'm not sure that they can, and that is terrifying on a lot of fronts.
I mean, they're currently 93 in the net, so that's not helping anybody anywhere.
No, not at all. But it's not like Georgia Tech or Pitt are that high either. And so if you want Syracuse to be a team that is doing something, these are the games that you have to win, even though they're on the road and it's early in the ACC calendar.
149 and 112, so we're playing about our floating in about our range here. We'll see how that goes.
I believe there was a stat that in the NET era, in the net era, any team that was ranked above 75 in the net on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day did not make the tournament. So it's not looking good for Syracuse right now.
No, that's not. Unless in ACC play they like snipe a couple of games that they should.
You need a minimum 2 quad 1 wins at the absolute minimum.
What do they even have? I know we've gone down through this before, but like, what do we have for potential quad 1s?
This Clemson game is one of them. Like that's like the challenging part. Like Clemson could have been a quad 1 win. We have Duke, but like, dear God.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah, so Syracuse is 93 in the net right now. I'm going to share my screen.
What do they consider Q1? Oh, it's the weird,
Yeah, because remember it's based on wins and It's based on wins at home versus neutral versus away. So
Yep.
right now, that Clemson game is a Q2 win because they're just outside of a Q1 win. It's 1 through 30 at home to be a Q1 win. Ironically, this Hofstra game could move up to a quad 2 game, which would not be half as bad.
Right.
Obviously, would be bad, but wouldn't feel as bad if Hofstra does a little bit of things in the CAA. But when you look at, so again, for those who are still trying to figure out their way around net, in order for a game to qualify as a quad 1 game, at home that opponent must be 1 through 30. At a neutral site, which we don't have to worry about anymore, is 1 through 50, and away is 1 through 75. So that's why away games are very, very important. So all these games that are coming up right now for Syracuse, these 4 games are all not really going to help the resume. The next big quad 1 opportunity is going to be at North Carolina State on January 27th. They're right now 38 in the net, so safely a quad 1 road game for Syracuse.
Yeah, and then obviously at UNC.
At UNC and at Virginia.
Which, if they end up doing something stupid down in Raleigh, that return trip on the 21st turns into not a quad 1 game.
Yeah, obviously.
It's like it's always one of those like, all right, yeah, that's fun.
Your quad, you only have right now, as it stands in the net rankings, 2 quad 1 games at home left, and that's SMU and North Carolina.
Yeah, and I think that was the tricky part about this schedule for Syracuse, is that because of how the ACC is, and just because of the way things broke with our home and roads, like we play. I think that there's a very real scenario where the ACC standings at the end of the year have Duke at the top, followed by some combination of NC State, UNC, Louisville, and either Virginia or Clemson. I'm more of a believer in Virginia than I am in Clemson. And again, as we kind of talked about here, we get only 2 of those potential games on at the Carrier Dome. All the other ones are on the road with no return trip. So it's just how the cookie crumbles this year. But again, like if Syracuse is a bubble team, home against Miami would be tricky, but you win that game. Home against Notre Dame would be tricky, but you win that game. Repeat for Cal, for Pitt. Like the challenge is that I don't know if right now we feel confident in saying that Syracuse should be favored against Miami, against Notre Dame, against Cal right now.
I don't feel comfortable saying they're favored against anyone. This team all year has been the definition of play to your opponent.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They've looked like
I get
hot
that with my
trash.
football team already.
Yeah. Yeah. They they've looked like hot trash and then pulled things out by a 20-point win after effectively 3 quarters of horrible basketball against like Mercyhurst. I don't know. It's such a weird team. Like they just continually, they can play shot for shot with Hofstra in Kansas, or for Freudian slip there, with Houston and Kansas, and that then somehow, laying against Hofstra. So here we are. And then take Clemson.
On the bright side,
down
that Tennessee game moved up to a quad 1 win.
There you go. It all makes sense.
It all comes. It's a lot of math. It's a lot of checking rankings and such. But like we said, like Syracuse just needs to start winning some games before we can really say with any level of confidence that these things are going to matter in the long run. So fingers crossed here. Gentlemen, that we're almost at the end of the hour. The Steelers are losing because of course they are. Anything else that we forgot to cover in what was the week of Syracuse sports?
If you want a basketball team to cheer for, I mean, here's Syracuse women's basketball. They're 45 in the net right now.
Woo!
And now you've got a real tough stretch coming up for them, with all top 100 teams in net coming up.
Yeah, and I was at that Duke game.
Not great.
That wasn't great. But I don't know. It seems like watching what I saw that game. What is Duke Q? Is that Q1?
Yeah, that is a Q1 game. Duke is 22 in the net, and so women's basketball does have 2 Q1 losses to Duke. The Duke one is a especially hurtful one because Duke doesn't feel like a quad one team this year right now in women's basketball. And the other one is to Michigan, and Michigan definitely feels like a quad one team. So that's unfortunate. But you do have 2 quad 2 wins right now in Auburn and at Wake Forest, so that's nice.
Yeah, and they're of course going to the Duke game is one of those where I'm like, I can tell I didn't see what that team could actually do in person, but there were moments. Shout out to Donovan Darius's daughter, Dominique Darius, who the 90s Syracuse football fan in me was like, oh yeah, I remember him. Jacksonville Jaguars finest in the NFL. Shout out to Gumby. But yeah.
Hey, Andy, remember LaQuint Allen exists.
Yes, LaQuint Allen does exist. You didn't need him, but he does exist. I still stand by the fact, and for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, go back to last week and catch the 2025 year-end trivia that Christian put together. It is absolutely wonderful. If you want Andy and I's heads exploding.
And also watch Andy make the first overall pick of all first overall picks.
100%. Like all draft theory, completely out the window.
Oh man, that was fun.
I pulled it.
Football Pregler.
Yeah, I pulled it out. I pulled it out at the end. But yes, congrats to Steve for finishing second in my fantasy league as an assassin in year 1.
So, just to continue real quickly on the women's basketball train, for those who don't know this women's basketball, get to know the name Uche Izoje like now. She is probably going to earn another ACC Rookie of the Week honor, and is really, really, really good. She's
one thing.
Yeah.
What's that?
She is 6'3" and definitely uses her size very, very well for Syracuse.
Yeah, that's that was one thing I meant to bring up. When she was on the court for Syracuse, do they do the ESPN probably doesn't do plus minus, but her impact on the game was absolutely insane. Like every time she was in, it was a significant improvement over when she was not on the floor. So yeah, that was keep that name in mind. Also rocks the 44. So
yes, indeed. And you can just look at some of the stats on our game log that I've got pulled up right now on the YouTube stream. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
like if there's a reason to watch this Syracuse team, this is a Syracuse team that FLJ has put together that is probably more aggressive defensively than this men's team, which is impressive.
Yeah, they get after it, and they also got in foul trouble because of it. So
I mean that's just going to come with the territory, but like this is a very, very good aggressive defensive team from the women, and yeah, ironically, if they get their 3-point shooting together, it becomes a very, very good team. For
what 3-point shooting?
Yes,
I watched 2 teams shoot 40 free throws.
Well, that's
sorry, no, 43 pointers and make 2 total combined, maybe 3.
So Steve's obviously talking about the Duke game, and Syracuse went 2 of 12 from 3, and Duke went 12 or 14.
Duke didn't go 12 of 14. Duke might have gone 2 of 14.
Yeah, 2 of 14. That's what I meant to say. 2 of 14.
Yeah. That's
Duke went 2 of 14, and Syracuse meant 2 of 12.
Yep. So 4 of 30 plus free throws or 3-pointers. free throws are on the brain because both teams suck at them. So
yeah, it just turns out that that's just something that man, I love it when the Syracuse men's and women's team do have a lot of overlap and similar personality in terms of play styles and whatnot. I don't like it when it's bad. When they were both playing the 2-3 zone and dominating and had the up tempo transition offenses, those were the days. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this week's edition of the Disloyal Idiots. As we kind of went through, there's going to be a lot happening this week that we'll probably have to cover on next week's show. So tune in to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe this in the podcast app of your choice. Helps us trick the AI into expanding the Ottoman Empire. We are going to continue to try to be recording these episodes on Sunday nights, so look for them in your feeds or on YouTube Monday mornings, and we will give you everything that we can do in terms of recapping the Syracuse news and previewing what's to come ahead. Basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball. We're going to get some more transfer portal news. Guys, I don't know if you guys have checked the Slack, but there is a private message in there that is very interesting from Kevin. I haven't.
Yeah, I've meant to look at that after we finish this recording.
So for you all that this is something about next week, it's a little tip that we'll talk about on next week's show, I'm sure in some way, shape, or form. So lots to look forward to in this episode and next week's episode. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in. And as always, go Orange.
Go Orange.
Go Orange.